Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 8 of English 120. This week, you're going to begin by watching the lecture, and I'm so happy that many of you who did not watch last week's lecture checked in with me. It means a lot that I get to see your face and get to talk to you in person, and it gives us an opportunity to talk about your research project. Because now in the class, we are really going to be focusing on your research project. Your homework this week is to read chapter 3 in the Bedford Researcher. This is the chapter that I'm going to be talking about today in the lecture. You're going to be learning about how to write research questions. This is the next stage in your research project. And based on the lecture and this information, you're going to complete your research journal. Please make sure you read chapter 3 before you complete your research journal. You'll also be completing Module 8 and take the quiz by Thursday at 11:59 p.m. And you'll be reading the Log of the Snark, pages 51 to 83, and taking part in a fun annotations discussion. So the next stage in our research project is our outline. So you'll be writing an outline about your research topic, and we will begin working on that outline next week. But you can't write an outline until you've actually developed your research question. So your research question is it's going to direct the way that you do your research, the rest of your research. You've already found some sources. You have a general idea about the topic that you're going to be writing about, but now you need to focus in on how you're going to approach your sources. And you want to think about how you're going to collect and critically read and evaluate and take notes from those sources that you find. Think about your research question as a flexible guide to help you find the right material to develop your a really strong paper. So research questions do a number of things. They help you, that before you begin writing your research question, you really want to think about what are the research conversations that are happening in your topic area. So go back through the sources that you found for your annotated bibliography and tell me what are the main things people are talking about in regard, these are the scholars, what are the main things that scholars are talking about in regards to your issue. What have you learned about the topic that you're researching? And then you want to think about focusing your role. So when you write about this topic, what role do you want to play? Do you want to be like a reporter who's informing your readers about a topic? Or do you want to be like, do you want to are you going to be somebody who's going to create and share new knowledge about something? Are you going to be an observer that really helps the reader reflect? Are you going to be an evaluator or an interpreter? Are you going to solve problems? Or are you going to advocate? Are you going to call your readers to action? Like after they read your essay, what do you want your reader to do? That's something you want to think about. What's your role as the writer? What are you trying to get your readers to do? You want to focus on one aspect of your issue, and you figure that out by free writing or looping or doing sentence starters to generate potential questions. So you want to think about, are you going to be looking at, in your research, are you going to be looking at information? So what is known and not known about an issue? Or are you going to look at the history, what's occurred in the past that's relevant to an issue today? Are you going to look at assumptions? What conclusions, merited or not, have writers and readers already made about an issue? Or goals. What do writers and readers involved in the conversation about this issue want to happen? Or outcomes. What has happened so far? What is likely to happen in the future? Or policies. What are the best procedures for carrying out actions, for making decisions? So once you kind of have that focus, you have your role that you want to do, you want to reflect on your issue. What do you know about it? You know what role you want to play, or several, which roles you're thinking about taking when you're writing your paper, and you can focus on one aspect of your issue. So and there's a number of really great sentence starters on page 44. So if you realize that you want to inform your reader, you can write questions. What is known and not known about blah, 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 whatever your topic is? How might we define blah, 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 right? If you want to create and share new knowledge and you want to take on the role of the inquirer, you could say, what causes the insert your topic? Or what are the effects of? Or what can cure, repair, prevent, right? If you're going to reflect, you're going to be the observer. What are the implications of? How can we learn from the example of an individual or group? What can we gain from thinking about an idea, a work of art, a work of literature or performance, right? Maybe you want to advocate. What are the origins of this argument? What is the status of this argument? Who has made the best argument about? What do the writers and readers involved in conversations about blank want to see happen or not happen? What should be done about, right? So there's a list on page 44 that lists all of these different types of questions. I want you to look at all of these and develop 10 research questions from doing the work on this page, reflecting on your issue, focusing your role, and focusing on one aspect of your issue. So develop 10 questions based on the sentence starters found on page 44 in the Bedford Researcher. Then the next step is from those 10 questions, I want you to refine 5 of them. And I'd like you to craft questions that reflect your writing situation. You're going to review your potential research questions, those 10 questions that you just wrote, and ask yourself which types of questions you'd like to focus on. I want you to choose the research question that seems more likely to help you achieve your purpose as a writer, and then refine that research question. You're actually going to be refining 5 of them in order for this week's assignment. So of the 10 that you wrote, I want you to refine 5 of them. You don't want it to be too broad, right? And you don't want it to be too narrow. You want it to have a balanced focus. How do you do that, right? So you want to make sure that first you want to refine your question so that it's as specific as possible. So if your first question was, and you wrote this as an advocate, right? What should be done about steroid use by adolescent girls involved in competitive sports? You'd refine that by adding in this conditional phrase that really sets the stage for the exact details of the question. So adding in, even though we know that widespread drug testing of all athletes younger and older is impossible. So adding in that conditional phrase, like even though it would be impossible to test all athletes, right? What can still, so you give that, that that's not possible, right? You lay that out there. What should be done about steroid use by adolescent girls involved in competitive sports? So even though that's known, there's a call to action of what could be done. So when you refine your research question, you want to add in a phrase like, although we know that, or because it is uncertain, or even though it is clear that, or given that studies indicate, or in light of recent events, or now that it has been shown, or since the lack of blank, while blank we cannot. I want you to add in one of these phrases to each of the 5 research questions that you'll be revising this week. If your research questions do not contain these phrases, I will know that you did not watch this lecture and you did not pay attention to developing the research question. This information is also in your chapter and it's found on page 49. Then, after you've done that, I want you to narrow the scope of your research question. So early drafts of research questions typically suffer from lack of focus, right? If you just fill in the sentence starters on page 44, these are really vague research questions. But you can narrow the scope of your question by looking for vague words and phrases and replacing them with more specific words or phrases. The process of moving from a broad research question to one that might be addressed effectively in a research essay might produce the following sequence. So here's a possible way to refine the same question we were just talking about. So if the original research question from the sentence starters was, what is behind the increased popularity of women's sports? And if you find it to, what has led to the increased popularity of women's sports in colleges and universities? So a very specific area where there's been an increase in women's sports and interest in women's sports. You can further refine it by adding in something you found through research. Maybe you found in research that Title IX really increased the opportunities for female athletes in colleges, in college and universities. And so you would say, how has Title IX increased opportunities for women athletes in American colleges and universities? Now that's getting even more specific, right? Much more specific. The scope is really, really focused. And these terms, this by narrowing your research question, you really make it easier for you to conduct preliminary searches, right? So now you would do some research on Title IX, right? That's another term, keyword term you can add to your list of keyword terms. So what you're going to be working on for your research journal this week is you're going to develop and focus. First, you're going to write 10 research questions, right? Right here, as I said in this part of the lecture. Then you're going to develop and focus 5 of those questions. You're going to use this process, craft questions that reflect your writing situation, and you're going to refine your research questions, at least 5 of them. Then you're going to answer brainstorm responses to at least 3 of these research questions, and your answers should each be 250 words. That's about a page each. I want you to choose which research question you think will be most effective to answer with an 8 to 10 page paper that you'll be writing. You're going to choose which research question you want to go with. So you're going to start with 10, go down to 5 that you develop and focus, then you're going to answer 3, and then you're going to tell me which one of those you would like to write, you would like to use for your research question. You need to finalize which research question you're going to be focusing on by the end of this week. And all of this work must be shown in your research journal. Finally, this week we're going to continue reading the Log of the Snark. This week, Jack and Charmian will be heading towards the Marquesian Islands from Hawaii. You're going to read pages 51 to 83. And what you're going to be doing in this discussion forum is you are going to be choosing 2 of the things listed here. There are 14 things listed, and you are going to look up the answer to the question. So, for example, if you look at the number 1 is the Marquesian Islands, you're going to tell me about where they're located, their culture and colonization, and you're also going to tell me where in the text Charmian is talking about the Marquesian Islands. And you are going to post that along with images and graphics to the discussion. Once you post yours, then you're going to respond to at least 3 of your peers' posts. Your post is due by Thursday at 11:59 p.m. and your response to your peers' post is due by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Do not do this one, guys. Sorry, that should have been deleted, and it'll be deleted from the main slides. So Module 8, you guys are going to be critically assessing sources. So this is the rest of your unit. You're going to be clicking through the content, and it's going to teach you how to assess sources, which will come in handy as you're doing the work for your research project. Make sure you go through all the content and take your quiz by 11:59 on Thursday. Now, if you guys have any questions, please make sure you stop by my office hours, or if you can't make it to office hours, you can always set up an alternative time with me. I look forward to seeing your work online. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Otherwise, I will see you online.